So today is quite an exciting day because it's the final photo shoot for the neopagan Wheel of the Year calendar that Mark Page and I have been working on for the past few months. It's actually the cover image for the calendar, so it's not particularly tied to any time of the year. It's just got to be something that appeals to that sort of neopagan community, the people who might buy the calendar. So we're heading off shortly down to a local shop called Ruby Moon, which has a lot of props and ornaments and all sorts of things that will make a nice shot. So here we are, here's Ruby Moon. Great little shop, been in High Wycombe for about 27 years. Always interesting stuff in the windows, always interesting. Look at all this stuff, and we've got plenty to play with in there. So let's go inside. Welcome to Colganology. I feel really guilty now, see, because Mark's doing all the work here, because I'm doing the filming.
Tell me what you do.
Yeah, well, what we need is stuff that represents the Wheel of the Year, so the 8th Sabbath. So, yeah, a triple goddess is great, a green man would be good. You know, we can have some sage, we can have... I really like that hair thing, actually, that's really nice.
Yeah, I saw that.
For the spring, that's quite a nice background, that one. But we've got so much to choose from here. Look at it all. There's a huge collection of stuff in here we can choose from. But the green man's lovely, yeah. Hello again, dog. Yeah, and there's always dogs. Everywhere I go, there's always dogs. There's always dogs. There's always dogs.
We're famous for it. 25 years.
Now, I suppose some of you might be asking, why am I doing this calendar in the first place? Are you a pagan, Stephen? Well, I suppose technically I am, because a pagan, by definition, is someone who lives outside of the major religions. And that's true. I don't have any religion or any particular faith. And in fact, the word pagan comes from the Latin paganus, and it was originally applied to the Britons when the Romans first came here, when they saw these simple, rustic, uncomplicated folk who were quite close to the land. So yes, I suppose I am a pagan in that respect, but pagan itself is not a religion. It's not a faith. There's a series of different faiths that can be grouped under it, you know, like Wicca and Druidry and shamanism and all those sorts of things. I'm not actually any part of any of those groups either. So I'm an agnostic, you know. I can't prove that God doesn't exist, but I don't actually believe that there is a God. But the reason I'm doing this calendar is nothing to do with faith or my lack of it. It's all to do with the way that human beings have found throughout history to measure things. Let me give you an example. I have size 11 feet, but that's fairly unusual in the UK because the average shoe size in the UK is size 9. And it just so happens that a size 9 shoe or boot is about 12 inches long. So that was the measure that people used to actually make sense of the world. You know, you could stick your boot next to something, you can measure it and say that's 1 foot long. We did the same thing with measuring the height of horses in hands. You know, the width of the thumb on an adult male is about 1 inch. All of these are sort of general measurements that were drawn from observable phenomena, you know, things that you could actually see day to day, and they made a lot more sense to the average person than the metric equivalents. I mean, you take something like the meter. Well, you know, a meter was calculated back in the 1700s as being 1/10,000,000th of the distance between the equator and the North Pole on a line that goes through Paris. Now, I can't imagine what 1/10,000,000th of that distance is, but that's what a metre was originally declared to be. And so those old sort of folk measurements, those imperial measurements, have hung around, whereas the metric measurements are used for more precise work. I mean, if I was a carpenter, I'd be working in centimetres and millimetres, because that's a hell of a lot easier than trying to work out what 7/13 of an inch is, or 6/17 of an inch, or whatever it happens to be. There is room for 2 systems. Hello! Hello, how are you? This is going to look so nice, especially with the police sirens in the background.
How easy to get to? You your big one. You get up,
And just as we looked around us and found ways to measure distance, we also looked around us and found ways to measure time. Now, the earliest examples of this are obviously noting that there was a dark half of the day and a light half of the day, and that the amount of dark and the amount of light changes at certain times of the year. That's how we arrived at a recognition of the solstices and the equinoxes. And after a while, people started to realise that the moon went through a series of cycles, 13 of them every year. And so that's the start of the idea of months. In fact, the word month comes from monath, which is a word that's related to the moon. Our ancestors noted that the equinoxes sat opposite each other and the solstices sat opposite each other, and that they divided the year into rough quarters. What they also realised is that two of those quarters, half of the year was in the dark half of the year and the other half of the year was the light half. But then they noticed that between each solstice and equinox, or between each equinox and solstice, there was a change occurring in the world around them, either in terms of the seasons changing or in terms of a change in human activity, like sort of coming out of their houses at the end of winter and planting things in the spring, or the harvest season, for example. So when they plotted those onto this rough calendar, it divided the year into roughly 8 equal sections. And when you plotted them on a grid, it looks a bit like a cartwheel. Hence, we got the wheel of the year. And what I love about the wheel of the year is that, firstly, it makes more sense than the Gregorian calendar, because that was dictated by the egos of Roman emperors and various popes. And as a result, it's really messy. I mean, can you remember how many days there are for each month?
Hey, Mama, how many days are in September?
30 days, sweetie. There's actually a really fun rhyme about that. 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. The rest have 31, except February, which has 28, unless it's a leap year, and then it has 29.
That's not how the rhyme goes. Yours completely fell apart in the end. It's got to have a beat to it. 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except for February, which has 28. Yay! That's a terrible rhyme.
I'm confused.
You see, the wheel of the year is much simpler, and it's based on science, because there are fixed points like the equinoxes and the solstices by which to actually mark the passing of the year. So that's why it was adopted by modern neopagans, such as druids or Wiccans or other forms of witches and shaman and people like this, because it makes sense. The other thing is, of course, that as you move from one segment to the next, there's usually a festival, there's usually a celebration of some kind. And let's face it, there's nothing we all like more than a good party with dancing and singing and feasting. So consequently, yes, these things are celebrated by neopaganism. In fact, some of them are celebrated by Christians too, because they were adopted and brought into the Christian calendar. May Day being a good example, Yule becoming Christmas, Ostara becoming Easter, etc., etc. So, you know, no matter what your particular faith is, you can still celebrate these times of year. Yeah, if we can hit all the elements. We can hit air, fire, earth, water and spirit. I think we've got spirit. I suppose smudge stick will work for air as well, wouldn't it? Yeah, smudge stick will work for air and sage. So it's really just, we got earth, it's probably just water really, isn't it? And
I like a candle.
oh, that's nice.
I like that one. Doesn't that look quite nice?
That will actually, yeah.
Stick it a little bit.
Then we got our fire and water, then, didn't we? Oh, we didn't have smoke last time, so we'll have some smoke. As I'm looking through the lens.
That's looking great. That's it. I think we're there.
It's great, isn't it? Look at that. That looks amazing.
So it is. Turn up the contrast a bit. We've got it.
Wow. So that's why I decided to do this calendar, because a lot of my friends are neopagans. They're either witches or they're druids or they don't have any particular religion, but they like to celebrate the time of year and the place they live by taking part in local customs and festivals. And the fact that I was being invited to all these festivals, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice to make a calendar for them? Because as far as I can see, there wasn't a Wheel of the Year calendar out there on the market. So that's what I did. I contacted my good friend Mark Page, an award-winning photographer, a brilliant photographer, and we sat down and we worked out what we wanted for each image, and we made our Wheel of the Year calendar. So there you go. All 9 photographs done, the calendar is complete. And even as I'm speaking here now and walking across this field with my idiot pug of a dog, there he is, It's at the printers, so we should get it back in a few days' time, and we'll start mailing them out to the people who pre-ordered them. What do you mean you haven't pre-ordered yours yet? What's wrong with you? Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for following through this calendar and its evolution. I'll see you in the next video. Toodle pip. And don't forget that our neopagan Wheel of the Year calendar is now available to pre-order. UK residents simply scan the QR code. Overseas customers email us at copa.artist@gmail.com and we'll try and work out the cheapest way of posting it to you. Thanks very much. If you've enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing. Or click on some of these links to look at some of the other videos on the channel. Or press the like button. Or leave a comment. It would be lovely to hear from you. Any combination of those 4 things would be wonderful. Thank you very much.